Oh, good morning, everyone. Today I've got the lovely Kerry with me from the Sunset Plan. Good morning, Kerry.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for having me, Claire.
Oh no, you're welcome. It's lovely to see you. Now, Kerry is in Wales. Is it sunny in Wales? We always have
Very
a
sunny.
weather report. It is nice and sunny there.
Very, very sunny. I've had to close the curtain a bit because it's a bit blinding, if I'm honest.
Oh, okay. Do you know it's bloody cold here? It's
Freezing.
yeah it is. So, Kerry, can you tell us a little bit about you and what it is you do? Well, just a little bit about you to start with.
Yeah, so I'm Kerry, living up here in Wales. I work full time, and then in the last just over a year or so, I started this separate project called the Sunset Plan, which I'm excited to tell you all about today, and my little journey about how we got here, really.
Cool. So today's topic is end of life planning, and it's a bit of an odd one, isn't it? So how did you fall into end of life planning? Would you like to tell us a little bit about how you got into being involved with this and about how you came to set up your own little business dealing with this?
Oh, so 2 years ago now, excuse me, my uncle passed away. And shortly, obviously, after his death, I was helping my mum and my aunt sort out the practical side of life after death, really. Um, I think people aren't really prepared for all the minute detail that's required. When people think about end of life planning, they think about a will, maybe lasting power of attorney, and you're sorted. Whereas the reality is our lives are full of detail around our home, our family, finances, and trying to find all that information is a bit of a treasure hunt. So during that process of trying to help, I realised instantly I went online and tried to look for sort of support guides, information, and there was nothing central that was just sort of a bit of a one-stop shop of guides of the more practical how to, what to do when, what to do with. So the idea sort of played in my mind for quite a while. And I think a lot of people sort of say, yeah, I've got a will, but it just doesn't have the roadmap and the detail as to how to execute that will.
No.
So as the months and months went on, there was lots of little things that needed to be picked up in terms of pets. Well, that was fine. The pets were being rehomed with my mum, but then where's the microchip information? Where's the utility bills? Who's the provider for this? And it's that kind of detail. And in my other life, I'm sort of super organised. I'm very, very structured, super planner. And then I kind of realised that that's not how we may plan our normal day-to-day lives, but we don't
No.
ever plan for the end. It's not the cheeriest topic. I get that. And it just got me thinking sort of the months that followed there's a real lack of central information out there for people, but also what can we do to plan ahead? It doesn't have to be because you've made that plan, you will die tomorrow. That's not what's going to happen.
No.
And I think that's what scares people.
I think you're right. There's a smashing quote by John Underwood, who started the Death Cafe, the original Death Cafe. He's now passed away. But it's like talking about sex won't get you pregnant. Talking about dying won't mean you die. That's not the exact words, but it's that kind of thing. And it is, you shy away from it. And we, things that we like, I'm not sure about that. But there is, like you say about the pets, Ruth, who was on talking about wills at the very beginning, her granddad has got the tortoises that her mum and her uncle had when they were children. And they are going to outlive granddad, I suspect, because with all the will in the world, sorry, Ruth, I'm not wishing ill on your granddad, but like as Richard, who was watching at the time, said, they can live to be 150. So you've got to think about these tortoises and where are they going to go? And like the microchip thing, you presume that the information in it is stored at the vets if you've got the same vet. So it's those little things that you just don't think about. And I think I'd be guilty had I not done a little bit of research because of of my time to talk sessions and all the rest of it, of thinking, oh, I've got a will, it'll be all right. Oh, Carmel's just joined me and Debbie's joined me and my husband's watching, and Carmel, well, she lost her mum, it'd be a year ago in June, and she's still got her dad, but they're still sorting out bits and pieces and finding out things nearly a year on. So I completely get that you don't want to, you can't badger somebody and say, write down all your passwords and write down all this. I was talking to my mum the other day and she said, like, for example, online banking, she does it. Dad
yeah
doesn't.
And that's something that's really common. That's as sort of the journey, as the website sort of evolved, a lot of the feedback I get is, oh well, he does that or she does that, wouldn't have a clue. Laugh it off, but still don't put any plans in place. And a lot of us now with our phones, you've got your thumb to access everything on your phone. When you're not there, they can't chop your thumb off, to kind of carry around to keep accessing the information that's needed the weeks, the months, the years that follow. And I think the other side of it is, in terms of when people are dealing with lots of the companies, yes, you've got your utilities, yes, you've got the mortgage, the landlord, what have you. But if you think of all the other services in your life, your TV subscriptions, your gym memberships, your magazine subscriptions, it's endless. But also, when you think each one of those needs to be contacted, you're grieving and having that conversation with people and saying to a complete stranger who's trained in bereavement support from the utility company, having that conversation of having to explain they've passed away, they want specific details, that just causes so much stress, because I could see the anxiety going, don't they know he's passed away? And you kind of go, they're in a call centre, they're not to know that. So there has to be an easier way. So, looking at sort of what can people do to, it's not going to make someone's death any easier. That's just a given. But I think in terms of capturing lots of that detail and information into organised sections to make sure it's there when it's needed, can give people that little bit of comfort. And I think you've got, in addition to that, you've also got the future wishes. So I don't think I've ever been to a funeral yet, and you will probably hear this all the time. People say, I think that's what they would have wanted. Never, there's not that many people that really have the funeral that they've like 100% planned, because they might I might think, oh, I like that song, that's what I'd like. If I don't tell anybody, they'll pick a song they think I like, which is fine. But it's kind of making sure that people have those conversations, plan ahead and record it, and then park it. It doesn't have to be something you kind of always doomy gloomy thinking about. It's just making sure what you discuss is recorded somewhere.
Definitely. I mean, I've the songs at the funeral that are quite often the more contentious aspects of what's said in the eulogy, because someone will think, Dad liked this song, and someone will go, no, but he really loved this one. And you can, I mean, in funerals at the moment, I mean, our local one where I do most of my funerals, like my cremations anyway. I've never been, I'm all over the place for burials, but cremations are pretty much always at the same place. They have 3 opportunities for songs, so the beginning, the middle and the end. So choosing those and trying to get one. I mean, for example, when Mark's dad died, I don't know if he's still watching, but I don't know how many Danny Boys we sat through on YouTube till we find the right one. And we sat through some really dire. we decided we'd have a drink and we'd sit and watch all these YouTube videos to get the right one. I think we went for Daniel O'Donnell in the end. Was it Daniel O'Donnell? No, it wasn't. Oh, he'll tell me in a minute if he's watching. I can't remember who it was now, but there are that many versions. And obviously at the moment you can't sing. In a cremation, you can have a hymn, but you can't sing. So, but those sorts of things are, and from my point of view, are they religious? Are they not religious? And well, they might have liked this, and well, how much, because I'm not religious at all, but I'm happy to put it in. But it's that sort of thing, like you said, the wishes, and Carmel saying Mum's Facebook is still up, which is, we're going to come to digital in a minute, aren't we? But yeah, I mean, and that's nearly, a lot of people's are. And Jen says, I might have had some really good ideas of what I want, had an excellent run through with Claire. Yeah, when I was before I actually did a real live funeral, well, not live, that's a really bad thing to say, but before I did a funeral, actually for a proper one, I did a couple of run-throughs, and Jenny kindly agreed to be killed off so we could have her funeral. So she's been to her own funeral and I recorded it for her. And so
Love it.
So she sat down with her family and did it. So but so she knows what she wants. Yes. But she's there to ask, and that's, I mean, it sounds a bit tongue-in-cheek, but we were as serious as we could be. But like you say, if you're not there, how do you guess? I mean, who writes down? I mean, my tunes have changed from when I was younger.
That's the other thing. What you want when you're 20, 30, 40, 50, well, 60, 70, 80 will change. Your relationships change, your friends change. So I think it's kind of revisiting it every so often. And but I know a lot of people that sort of, oh, I did a will when I was 20. That's great, you're 65 now. Have you changed home? Have you acquired any more assets? Have you, you know, and so it's up, but it's there, it's fine. But not thinking like the detail within that, or updating things. And I think that's a real, you know,
And
something
all,
for people to think about.
definitely, and also something I didn't realise, but when Ruth was on, she said, if you write a will and then get married, that actually invalidates your will. So my will I wrote when the children were young and I was on my own, and you know the main bulk of that was sort of leaving my children to my parents. Well, they're 20, 23 and 26.
They might not want them now.
They love them, but well, it makes no place for Mark, and that's like you say, the circumstances changing.
Yeah.
So I mean, and like you were saying about the utilities, are they trained in, do they have a bereavement section, or was that tongue in cheek? I mean, some people will have, you know, and some really good staff that go out of their way to help, but like you said, when you're bereaved, especially if it's a shock, that grief is physical as well as emotional, and you don't feel like dealing with people who are, yeah, but the computer says you've got to pay £87.36. You don't feel like that, do you?
Yeah, and I think as well, when it comes to certain services, depending on your circumstances, you may say, well, actually, husband and wife live together, one party passed away, it's not that urgent.
Yeah.
But if they were the named person on the account, every time the post hits the mat, it's that reminder. So you could be, I'm having a great day, it's Tuesday, I've like, you know, kind of a few months after your bereavement, you're thinking you're doing okay, and then all of a sudden, post hits the mat, you see that name, day's over.
Yeah.
Because it's that constant reminder back. But if you, some of them do have sort of trained departments, but when you still get that person you've never met, I'm really sorry for your loss. But also when you still, I know one thing that happened with my mom, when the post was still coming through from the utilities, it was the, but he's died, don't they know? And you think, well, they don't know until they're notified. So, you know, it's really difficult making those contacts and sort of putting steps in place to sort of let them know. But again, I don't think any two people's situations are the same, like we were saying before, in terms of your family setup. If you've got people that make a decision on your behalf, have you got conflicting siblings? Do they live nearby? Families get so complicated, we're so spread. I did a blog post the other day and it was really interesting about how families are so spread and dealing with death from a distance.
Yes.
Kind of looking at you know, the world's a really small place, and how many people do we know that have retired to the sun, and it's wonderful. In normal times, not that it's ideal, but you can hop on an EasyJet flight, go to Spain, start sorting out their affairs, not realizing legality issues, that, you know, all those different things. But now with COVID overnight, stopped. You can't just go, you can't just pick things up.
You can't even go. My friend Maria's mum died about a month ago, and she could not go to Spain to be with her, and she still hasn't been able to get to Spain to be with her dad. And
I've heard stories though about where on the receiving end, so for example, if the person lived alone, say the landlord or, you know, the companies that are abroad are sort of still saying, well, we need this resolving, we need the property empty, and we need, you know, and they're trying to be as compassionate and flexible as they can be, but they're still businesses as well, and they still think,
of course,
you know, COVID has just changed the landscape. You know, and I know a friend sort of within hours of hearing about a parent had passed away, had to navigate an airport terminal to travel to go back to the family. And you know, there's so much to it, and that at that point having to walk through an airport where everyone's in holiday mode and you're, you know, constantly being spoken to by different people, and you just kind of need to get back somewhere. So I think there's added implications around where you are physically to your family, how close you are, is there any conflict? So in terms of coming back to sort of how you can plan ahead, you know, some people are thinking, I don't really want to do this, it's a bit morbid. Well, actually, it's kind of a nice future gift to your family. So you can make sure that everything they need is in one place, nice and organised, ready for when they need it, so they can focus on, unfortunately, grieving and supporting each other through the most difficult parts. And actually, when it comes to resolving matters, that's okay. We've got a directory really of all their wishes, their accounts, their everything. It's all nice and tidy, as tidy as it can be, so we can deal with that part and focus on.
Yeah, because there's no grief guidebook, is there? There's no right, now do this, now do this, and we know the stages of grief come and go. I mean, you know, there's the famous 5 stages of grief. You know, your anger, denial, and your acceptance, and your depression. I can't think what the last one is. Maybe you can remember. I can't remember. But, you know, they come and go into different stages as well. And excuse me, they you know, you've got, as well as this, you've got all this, like you say, the treasure hunt of finding out. And at least if you've got things in, like you say, a directory where you know where to go, like a death file. My mum has got a folder and we call it the death folder. But it's got in it you know, all the bank accounts and, you know, the information I need, because my brother lives in Broadstairs, which is, I'm in Mason, and mum and dad are literally a mile and a half along the road, so it's relatively easy for that. But supposing I lived in, for example, a friend from school, she lives in America, her parents live here, and her brother lives in France. Now that's a flight back before anybody can do anything. So, you know, the talk is clicking,
Yeah.
teeth in, the clock is ticking straight away. Now, that, for example, their property is their own, but if you're in a council property, I think you've got 2 weeks, or you've got to start paying rent, and you've still got to pay rent for those 2 weeks, I believe, as well. Because somebody was talking about the other day, what's Carmel was saying, I was cancelling something for my father-in-law. They said they will phone in 6 months to see if he wants to open it up again. I told them not to. They asked why. I said he'll be dead by then. I said, oh, he'll still be dead by and that's
you're dealing with a lot
awful.
of like automated processes, and they just don't capture that. So and that just causes that, like I said, the anger of thinking, I've told them once, and it's just unfortunately systems aren't set up in places to support people.
You've got the government tell us once thing, which is a really good idea, haven't you, where you can go and send your death certificate, and there's something else you send, I can't think what the other thing is, and it should be a one-stop shop where this is for all government official pensions and benefits and council tax discounts and things. Oh no, that's borough council, isn't it? I've made that up. That's borough council.
No, tell us once but again, tell us once it's not in all UK areas, it's in certain ones.
Really?
So that's so again, it's kind of a bit of a lottery as to I think it's a majority, but there are some that it doesn't cover. But again, it's just like you say, government companies or departments.
It's one less stress, isn't it? And it's so this is kind of so creating a plan like this, like you've done, is kind of a sort of a one-stop shop in a way, because you should have all the information. Oh, Carmel's doing hers, but you're going to be around for another century yet, Carmel. She's going to live to be 100 and something, she is. So you've got all the information in one place, like my mum's done. But if she hadn't done it, my dad, bless his heart, I mean, he's a wonderful, wonderful man. I'm not knocking him at all. Mum does it, and the funeral I'm doing at the moment, this lady, she organised everything. She leaves her husband, but her son and daughter-in-law have both said she organised everything. Everything was organised by her. So luckily they've got all the information they need. But if you've got a rummage for it, and if it's somebody who lives far away and you haven't had that conversation, I would feel quite rude rummaging through someone's personal drawers. And my kids know where our stuff is. We've got a little cabinet, it's all in there, it's all in folders, like the car details, the insurance, and but there'll still be things I haven't thought of.
Absolutely.
Like my little charity lotteries and things. I mean, you could stop that when the bank freezes, I suppose, can't you? But
again, until they're notified their end, they just don't know the difference whether you just stop that payment because you don't want to contribute anymore. So we've got a neighbour, and the post was coming to us for a time, and the notifications still keep coming, because I don't think there must be a certain bank account somewhere that's not been dealt with because the family live far away. So those subscriptions are still going, and if it stops, they probably just think, oh, he's just chose not to pay anymore. So until they get that clarification,
they're not psychic, are they?
No. Well, something came up the other day. I was talking to somebody, and we were saying about how when you get a lot of posts that someone's passed away, or normally you return to sender them, but you've also got that added security risk nowadays, that if you've got someone in a property and they're constantly getting this mail come through, and one might have their address, one might have their date of birth, one might have an email address, how easy is it, if you're a bit of a mastermind and you were that way inclined, that information is coming to your home. What's to stop someone sort of recreating accounts or you know, identities based on that. You know, it has happened, and but going back to the accounts as well, it's people say, oh yeah, they bank with Lloyd's. Okay, but that's great. What about pensions? What about investments? What about premium bonds? What about, there's so much out there, and I think trying to capture it all in one structured place, but sort of, like we said before, some people will go, right, I've got the finances sorted, great. Okay, what about the house? So another interesting thing we talked about recently was second homes, and people not being able
Oh
to access
gosh.
their second homes. Now, if you've got a second home and it's rented out, okay, that's great. Where's the tenancy agreement? Where's the deposit? Did you have a bond? Was it furnished? What's the details
Yes.
of that? Was there a management or company in place that do, looking after the gardens?
Yeah.
It's a boiler cover. What about? And if you've sort of left that to the partner in a relationship, or it's something that you had on your own, or a second home, where's all that info? And I know it sounds really detailed, but actually they're questions that are going to come up at some
Of course
point,
they are.
or money's going to be paying out somewhere to somebody for something that you don't know about. But it doesn't just think, oh well, that person's passed away, we don't need to worry about that anymore. It will still be there, and it just comes to you at some stage, probably when you're least expecting it.
Yeah, and when you least need it as well, a couple of months down the line when things have sunk in and you're actually dealing with because to start with, most people are in a bit of state of shock, and it takes a while. You're wandering around going, have I dreamt that? We've all done it. We've woken up and gone, oh yeah, no, it is real. That wasn't an awful dream. But also I didn't think about rent. I mean, I haven't got another property. My portfolio is not that large, but I know plenty of people that do. And obviously you've then got, if you have to sell that property, you have to give notice to the tenants. You have to give them a reasonable amount, and maybe even evict them. And that's all stress that you don't, if they would say, no, we're not going. I mean, you do get, and deal with it if there's a problem with it. It's all those things. So you've got a huge long list of, so just a rough idea of all the things that you would involve in a plan. So you've got your bank accounts.
Yeah, we sort of, so when I sort of created the initial template, I was sort of I'd created it looking at personal information, so your next of kin, just information about you, then family information, family details, sections about pets. And again, I think sometimes to have that structure as prompts for people to sort of think, oh, I hadn't thought about that, oh, I need to jot that down.
Yeah.
Then you're looking at finances in terms of personal accounts, then you've got investments, then you've got savings. Some of bits won't be applicable, you can bypass those. Properties, home files, so within the home, what services you have, utilities, all your different services that you have, then about funeral
And insurances as
planning,
well, I
end of life
guess.
wishes, and there's a bit of a tick list at the end to sort of say, oh, I haven't got a lasting power of attorney. Insurance, that's another huge thing. Well, going back to time, there's been a campaign recently by the bereavement standard looking at getting 2 weeks statutory paid bereavement leave, because at the moment you're really relying on your work. Actually, what most employers will say is you need to take a doctor's note to say that.
They do.
Yeah. Now, is that really, I mean, 2 weeks still would be such a short amount of time for you to resolve someone's life. But if you've got that added pressure of you need to be back at work, or you run your own business, for example,
Self-employed.
where's that time come from? So again, having that information in one place will just, the limited time you've got, it will just help you. So yeah, going back, we've got insurance sections, future wishes, your funeral wishes, and just some tick boxes, like I said at the end, just to kind of think, if you didn't want to do it all in one go, you could think, right, today I'm just going to jot down information around one aspect. Oh, on there I haven't got a will sorted, or maybe it needs looking at. Right, that's just something to add to the list to do. And I think if you break it down into those sections, it's more manageable, as opposed to thinking of, I need to plot my whole life out now just in case something terrible happens. You're not going to do it. It's too much.
No, it's too much. And the thing is as well, if you've never done it before, it is a huge thing. I mean, the end of lives that I've been involved with personally have been dealt with either by my parents. I mean, obviously I've supported my parents when things have been done, but as a child, obviously I was way too young to deal with my granddad or my nan, and my other nan died when I was 24, but she'd got most of her stuff sorted, and mum and dad dealt with that. More recently I've had a bit of a tiny, like, you know, even a hand in, a finger in, you know, sort of, yeah, that'd be nice when it's come to the funerals and the actual, you know, what we're going to do. But if you've not done it before, that's a huge weight. And with Mark's, because that's my experience of losing parents, is my in-laws. So with Mark's mum, my father-in-law did it, and that, because that was a complete shock too, so that was horrendous. He had then got everything pretty much sorted, and because he knew he was going to pass because he was ill, he'd got a power of attorney set up for his sons, but there was still an awful lot for my brother-in-law and my husband to do. But he had thought about that. But if you're on your own and you haven't thought about it, that's a huge mess to unpick, isn't it?
Yeah, and again, like you say, timing is key, because, you know, if you do it now while you're fit and able or reasonably fine, and just get it jotted down as part of your general life jobs and get it done and park it, is great. Because do you really want to be on someone's sort of last weeks or months discussing end of life? Because that's just going to upset someone. They know what's coming, and that's just going to add to that. And do you really want to be on someone's last day saying, "What's your utility provider again? What was the account details? Do you pay by direct debit, or do you
Did you say
pay
it
on
was
a tip?"
Power and British Gas? Was it? You
Yeah,
don't.
British Gas, was it? Was it premium bonds? You know, just 1 second. Yeah,
You
I'm
do.
really. How are you feeling today? You know, it's really not the right time to be sort of getting this information together when you've, you know. And again, I think it comes back to a lot of people saying, "Oh, parents have always traditionally done it," but there comes a point where you're the person.
You are the parent.
You're in charge. But the world's changing, like we were talking about before, and I know we'll come to it. Previously, you know, sort of my grandparents' generation, what was sought out was sort of admin side of things. Was you didn't have all your TV, your telephone accounts, your gym memberships and your subscriptions and your cat protection lottery and all the rest of it. You didn't have an online
How
life.
do you know I've got that?
Twins. But it's one of those that you just go, that wasn't there. You know, in terms of what people paid out, in terms of accounts, you know, like say your mortgage or landlord, you didn't, most people in the main didn't have additional properties, or, you know, sort of all these 1,000,001 services that we employ now. But again, we didn't have an online life, so coming to that as well. So as sort of people, you know, in their 40s, 50s, 60s are dealing with this on behalf of someone else, that's part of something that when they may have witnessed their parents dealing with it for their parents, a lot of
It
this
was a more simple.
it was a simpler process, not simple, because that's probably
less complex.
Yeah, less complicated. We didn't have as much stuff, whereas now we've got stuff, cars, vehicles. That's a whole other section. Well, who's got the spare keys? When's the MOT due? Where's your paperwork?
Yeah.
So much information that kind of, you know, whereas now many families, multiple cars.
Yeah, definitely.
You know, and it's, you know, motorbikes, camper vans, insurance comes with it. Where's the paperwork? There's so much in our lives, whereas previously people had a house, children, you know, travel wasn't maybe as common, you know, so you've got like, oh, John's got a Barbados cruise booked. What we're going to do about that? Because the money's going to draw from his account if we don't get there quickly, you know. And it's sort of it's terrible, but there's a lot to think.
After I spoke to you, like the other week, I spoke to my mum, and like my mum is like an absolute legend. She's a bit of an oracle. If my mum doesn't know, do you know what I mean? It's, you know, and like she said, she only had house, nobody had cars, they had bank accounts, but so no debit cards. It was just the checkbook and the paying in book.
Yeah.
So everything was paper, because you're talking of 26 years ago was the last time she had to deal with it. Oh, Carmel's just saying the bank told my dad that they don't need to take my mum's name off the account and he can use her card too. Carmel, I'd query that. That's because that's technically fraud.
Yeah.
If he's using her card, although it's his account, because he could easily say that's lost and say that somebody else has used it, couldn't he? They should query it as well. If they've got Mrs. blank blank and there's a fella using it, but do you? Because you tap, you'd shove your card in the machine. You know, in the old days, you'd get the printer and the imprinter, and you'd put it down. You'd go, yeah. Back in the days when I was a Saturday girl,
with a slip, getting your hands all inky.
Yeah, you did. And then then you only got a bit clever, and you got all these ones that you didn't have the ink on. You had those slips, EPS we used to call them, electronic payment system. But yeah, all those things you don't think about. So So we've got the idea of all the different things to use, but like you touched on the digital and how that is going to be, so that's what she told them. Yeah. Do you know what? Yeah, that's not on. Yeah, that's really not on. I would have thought that would have been one of the things one of the first things they did, because that just opens up for fraud. Because not
And again,
everybody's a nice person. I mean, Carmel's mum and dad are lovely. Do you know what I mean? Carmel's lovely, and I can't see her dad running off and spending a fortune in wherever and saying it wasn't me, my wife's card, and but people would. I know people that have done similar things. They're not my friends, but I know people who have done it. And she's still fuming about it. I don't blame you, Carmel. I really think that needs looking at.
but again, you've also got family conflict. For example, if that's, say, one sibling and then doesn't pick that up, for example, and then as you come, if you need to apply for probate, all of a sudden you start going through it, and dad's bank account, and all of a sudden some money's go, who's been spending on that? They may then approach the bank and say, there's fraud going on here. Well, we've told them that it's okay to use it.
Yep.
When it comes to sort of anything to do with finances after someone passes away, it has to be so squeaky clean, because the potential for conflict, and that's probably the point where families fall out most, when there's sort of that disagreement's going to happen. But that's a bit.
That is because I put because I mean, for example, I mean, Carmel's got a brother and a sister. So, and Carmel's up here and near me, and her family are more southwest. And I think her sister's, I don't know about her brother. Obviously, I'm not going to give out any details, Carmel, but they're all lovely, and they're all wanting the right thing done. But if you had a dodgy sibling, and I'm not saying Carmel's siblings are, but you do, and you get people that have got addictions, you've got people that have got money worries. That's just awful, because and even amongst family that agree, wanting to do the right thing, you're going to get a difference in opinions, and that can make life extremely difficult, can't it?
And that's where you just see so much conflict arises, where someone's passed away and different of opinions, like we were saying about funeral wishes and what should happen next and who should lead on what about everything in the property, in terms of disagreements over, well, they said I could have that painting. Well, no, that's my painting. Well, you're not having that before I'm not having, and it's kind of, I think the other thing we've not touched on as well is the amount of stuff people have in their properties. I've got a few blog posts about decluttering through life, because once you've done all the funerals out the way, and you've started looking at the admin, then you've still got a house full of stuff,
and taking all that stuff out, it takes time, doesn't it? And I've shared one of your blogs on one of my posts later on in the week, so hope that's all right. I forgot to ask you, sorry.
No, that's great. Yeah,
out there in the public domain, so I thought, but I posted a thing yesterday, and it says sources of family conflict after a death. These are like the top 10 things: is when to sort through belongings, who gets what to keep and what to give away, whether to keep or sell a house, money, treatment decisions at end of life, funeral arrangements, family relocating, custody, and dealing with difference. And that just says it all, really, doesn't it?
Yeah.
That you just, all this, it's just crazy, isn't it? And if it's not organised, I mean, what can you do?
Yeah, and I think there's so much you can do in terms of planning ahead. Not saying that you need to live with just the most minimal belongings around you, but if you've still got cupboards full of old bank statements that are like 30 years old, or so I know people like to keep hold of different things, but sometimes it's kind of good to have that mindset of one day someone's got to come in here, and now what are they going to find is also, I've had some quite comical feedback about things that they found in people's properties that they weren't really expecting. So again a good tip is to, a good tip has been to sort of see if there's a family friend that you trust, that if there's like a certain cupboard that you don't want to find out about, that you kind of get them that are a bit more detached, that they can kind of have a bit of a sift through. But again, there's so much in our homes that if you need to empty that property out as well, like we were saying before, if you need to give a property back to a landlord,
and you've got
that
2
time
weeks
pressure,
sometimes 2 weeks.
what do you do? What do you
Yeah.
do with it all? You know, and there's some stuff that's quite straightforward, you know, in terms of furniture. You might think if it's not sentimental, you know, there's so many good ways of passing things on through Facebook, and, you know, local groups, local charities will collect certain items. So a lot of stuff can be put to good use. But if you need to clear everything out, you've got that time pressure against you. You've still got your family life. You may have to still be working, looking after children, dealing with that. But if you've got to bring it all into your home while going through the process of sorting it out, where are you going to put it? You know, and that's when you get the arguments of, well, no, you're not getting rid of that. I want that to go to, that was promised to. Oh, so, you know, there's a real opportunity for people to sort of think ahead. And if there are things of real importance or value, what's the harm in normal time saying, whenever the time may come, Carol, I want you to have XYZ, and, you know, share that with people. So, and then document it. Granted, you know, in terms of legally binding, you know, if it's that important, get it in a will. But in terms of more practical things, you know, have that conversation. Don't be so scared about it. And it's just planning ahead, I guess, in terms of physical stuff as well.
That's a huge thing, is talking about it. And luckily I have talked about it with my mum and dad, and she said, oh, I was inspired by what you said the other day. This was before Christmas. She said, so I wrote down, I was planning a funeral and I was sort of umming and ahhing about something, and she said, so I've written down sort of things I'd like. Don't feel held by it, but the sort of things I might like. So I said, okay. So she'd give me this list of, I quite like this music, I quite like that, I quite like that. She goes, so it's an A4 sheet of paper. I'm like, brilliant. She goes, I put it in the death file. She goes, now I asked your father, and I was like, yes. And he'd got 2 lines at the bottom of this sheet of A4, and it was, don't really mind, quite like the music from the Last of the Summer Wine. And but equally, so I'm like, okay, but equally I know that it's not specific, that if, you know, as long as he's got a dignified thing, he won't be coming back to haunt me, bless him. And but you know, it's even if you've got a very minimal stuff, you know that somebody isn't that bothered, and you know about specifics.
Yeah.
So we were talking about digital, and like Mum was saying, online banking, for example, she does it all. And lots of things have gone to direct debits. Now, my dad is a very, very, very clever man, don't get me wrong. He just doesn't really do computers. He's nearly 80, and he wasn't interested. He's got a little huddle that he plays games on, and he Googles things he wants to find out or looks up different things. He doesn't do computers other than that. I don't think he's even got an email. He must have a Google Mail for huddle, I suppose. How can you store this information safely? Because this is something that, I mean, I read The Art of Swedish Death Cleaning by Margareta Magnusson, and I did a live on that a couple of weeks ago, and that was fascinating. And actually she talked about finding things in cupboards you don't want, and she talked about finding things pertaining to your sex life in a cupboard. And you know, like, she said, keep one, you don't need 15. and I'm like, that's the point, because nobody wants to find that, do they? But with she said about writing your passwords down in a notebook, and I'm like, not so sure about that. And I have got mine written down somewhere. My son went ballistic at me in a nicest way. He was like, Mum, you can't have them written. I said, I know, but I don't know what else to do with them, where else to put them. So I know you're involved in another project coming up, so, and that deals with that. So please, can you give us a little bit of your insight on digital stuff?
No, definitely. So when I started out on this journey with the website, I think my sort of longer term goal was to create this digital vault, where everything can be stored, saved, and then shared. And in the last few months, I've been working with another company, and on the 23rd of March, really excited, we'll be launching this digital vault service. So live organisation and legacy planning. So when that goes live, you'll be able to create an account, ultra secure, bank grade security, and then So the current offer that we have is that there's you know, a physical product, a booklet for those that like to do things and keep it in the house. We've got a PDF for those that are kind of like to store and save things but need that structure. This digital vault will be a place where similar structures there around home, finances, end of life, future wishes, etc. So it will walk you through all the information that we've talked about today: how to save it, how to store it, and how to share it. As well as that, you can also upload what you want to do with your digital life after, because you need to think about who do you want to give access to, how tech savvy are they. So for example, if your permission was given to your dad for someone's digital access, that'd be great, but it'd be
He would,
lovely.
no, he wouldn't, no.
Yeah, so it's got to be someone that, like I say, that you trust and you would know. Then also you need to think about, if it's really important, you can have a digital will now. So who are you assigning, you know, that to? And there's lots of resources around digital wills. I'm going to just add a couple of links onto
cool,
the blog
please,
I've got. Yeah, so we've got, so when you go onto our site, we've got lots of articles and blog posts around different things: how to deal with personal possessions, how to close a bank account, and one of them is around digital afterlife. So I'm going to put some links on there as to companies that you can go to kind of give you that advice as to how and what, because each provider as well, in terms of things like your social media accounts, you know, when you come to close them down, there are certain things that you can do in advance, but most people don't go to that settings part to do it because they think, well, I'm gonna live forever, it's okay, or because, you know, you're a younger person. But it's actually just a very quick thing that you can go and do and sort of put there. So in terms of sort of social media accounts, some people like to leave them up for a long time, but then you've also got the complication of family disputes. Some don't want to see it and some do, and then some go, oh, it's so-and-so's birthday, remember their birthday, and that, what does that impact for someone else, for them on that day? So I think it's about having those conversations and putting a bit of a plan in place. But with the digital vault, it will have all the different sections, super secure. You can put in all your information in all the subcategories, so it's there, and you can decide whether you want to share it with people now so they can access it. You can also decide if you only want it passed on when you pass away. So again, some people might think, I don't want anyone to know this now, but I have got peace of mind that on the day they need it, it'll be available to them.
That's
but again,
a really good idea.
Yeah, the great thing with the vault as well is that you can upload information. So when you've got your will, great, where is it? Who knows where it is? So you can attach that. Lasting power of attorney, attach that. Your you know, scanned copies of your information, you can, you know, for example, someone's passport or national insurance, you know, details, what have you, take a photo, upload it. You'll just be able to scan, upload, save and store, so it's there.
Really simple to do, really,
nice and step by step. So you kind of, in your think, your life is in a bit of a digital vault, so it's there when it's needed. But the other lovely thing is you can there's a memory section, so you'll be able to put things about, you know, if you want to upload videos or clips or all that kind of stuff. So, and again, I know that people are a really popular thing at the moment, sort of popular may not be the right word, but people sort of recording messages for the future and sharing those. So it's, you know, there's, you know, if someone's aware that they're due to pass away, but there's, you know, it's super interactive, super intuitive, very easy to use, very visually simple as well. So I think if you're not necessarily techie person, when you register an account, so the majority, like the account is free to set up, and then if you want to add on certain things like additional what's the word, like storage or certain facilities, there's a small charge for that.
But it's like a storage charge, isn't it, that you'd get at a storage facility, you know, like if you go and store furniture for 3 years, it's got Jenny's had to go, but she said, thanks so much, Kerry. So she's going to watch the last bit on what to call it. And Jean, who was on, lovely Jean, who's the soul midwife, who was on last week, said that sounds brilliant. And that's something that I think we've all touched on, is, you know, what to do. So
yeah, it's, so we've got this big problem, what are we going to do about it now? So hopefully, so two sides of it really. So the Sunset Plan is there as a bit of a directory of advice and guides, and it's still only a year old, so it'd be nice just to keep adding to those blog posts as we go. And again, a lot of it comes from people give me examples of what's not gone right, and then blog posts have come around that. Well, they struggled with such and such, what to do with the medication, excess medication, or medical furniture, medical equipment, what to do with that. So nice little blog post there in snippets to help you. Also blog posts to encourage people and to think, yes, my family's spread out, what can I do to make this as smooth for them as possible? But then when the other part of it is the sort of advanced planning, getting everything together, saving it in one location, and so that's kind of the solution to it, really. So we're really excited that that's going to be there, because that was kind of the, again, in my head, in my life, I'm super organized, so I like everything to be nice and tidy and in one place. So now I just kind of think, but do you know what, it's one of those that if you do it, like we said, a little bit as you go along and it's done, then when you get your new car insurance renewal, actually, rather than saving it in an email account here or in a folder there, delete and replace, job done, everything is there, nice and tidy. So it's actually more of a life organisation tool as well, as opposed to just an end of life tool. And again, if you're in a couple, you can both be adding into it, so that's really helpful as well. And it stops people saying, where's the electric bill gone, where's the car insurance
Yes,
details,
that's real dual purpose, isn't it? Because that is life and legacy planning, isn't it? It's a tool for both, isn't it?
Definitely.
That's a really good idea. I really like that idea, because like, for example, I deal with them. I mean, Mark could deal with them. My husband Mark could deal with them, but I deal with all the bills and just say I need some more money coming in from, we've got different accounts and things like that. But it's and the thing about uploading memories or videos is a really lovely idea as well. So it's not just about death, it really is life and legacy. And I love that term, that it's because Mum and I were talking about it, me and my mum. I spent a lot of time, I spent all last week with my mum, and but we were talking about, because I had a guest on about a month ago called Jean. No, I didn't have my guest on called Jean. You were last week, Jean, sorry. Kay, who talks about life stories, and when she was really poorly with leukemia, she was thinking about, well, nobody knows the story about this, nobody knows the story about that. And so she was talking about using, a memory or a thing and writing stories about your life, not necessarily writing an autobiography, but stories about, a particular ornament and why it's special, why you've kept it for 50 years. And like Mum the other day, she was sorting through some photos, which was a right laugh. I had some brilliant photos crop up. And there was one of her and her friend Mary, who emigrated to Australia and is now dead. And Mary's twin has passed away, and Mary's parents have passed away, and Mary's twin didn't marry or have children. So nobody else in that photo would know anything about it. It's of no interest to anybody else. But my mum's kept this photo of them on a school trip to France, I think, St Malo, I think they went. And to know anybody else, it'd be, well, it's two 14, 15-year-old girls. But to Mum, there's a whole story about this week spent away in France. So this would have been like 1961, 61. And when going to France for a week was amazing. So to my mum, that is full of memories, and probably shaped her experience of being away from home for the first time. And so being able to sort of write, and we were talking about how do you save those memories, because you can write it down, then you've got to store it somewhere. Someone's got to then get this folder of things and pop them in the cupboard, and where do you put it all? So we were talking about this, and I've got a lady next week who is talking about other ways of storing memories and accessing them, and so that would be interesting. But so this, what's that called, that one?
It will be within the Sunset Plan. So go to the Sunset Plan website, it'll be there on the front page, and then you just go on and create your account, and it will link you through. So that'll go live on the 3rd of March.
That'd be
really exciting. But again, you're going back to your dad as well. I think once it's all stored, in terms of every so often, once a year, for example, going through with that family member and saying, right, just come and watch what I'm doing. You don't need to know how it works. This is saved there and that's saved there. So you just know that when the time comes, come and get Claire. She'll log in and she'll show you, and it's all there. So that's really good. But also in terms of, as we've talked about, families that are spread out, if you give access to your children, one's in France, one's in Australia, actually, could they be helping from a distance? So, for example, okay, John, will you look at the utility side? That's all there. Will you make contact with So it's that one central pot. So actually, although at the moment it's aimed at UK based customers, but in terms of access, well, you could give that to your family members that are sort of spread a bit further around the world or around the country. So actually it's that kind of one, oh, well, actually I need to send you a copy of the such and such, well, upload it to there, so you don't need to worry about putting it in the post or sending it because through an email if it got lost or intercepted. Well, if it's in this, sort of bank grade security vault, then actually just know you can upload it there, and it's a good easy way to transfer and share that information. So like in terms of people that aren't maybe so techie but knowing they know it's there, just giving that reassurance of this is what it looks like, it's there. Just remember, when the time comes, you've got a sunset plan. Just tell someone you've got a sunset plan, right? Okay, let's get access to it, and then everything's there, whether it's around home, finances, family, will, lasting power of attorney. It's there, and it's accessible. Again, you can be uploading things, take photos, upload, so it's we're so fortunate the technology we've got now. Why not use it? Why not use it
to our
to the best?
advantage? Yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah.
So just moving on to sort of, so supposing I did a plan like that, and then I died. So Mark comes along and he phones up. He goes, "Hi, Kerry. Claire died. Yeah, she drank too much wine and too much cheese and exploded."
Oh, that again.
Yeah. How often does that happen? So how would you, so presumably that person has to give a death certificate, and would the plan allow for people who are allowed to, obviously people who are allowed to access it, obviously that must work on people knowing that it exists and that you can. So how do you verify who can, just as a security thing? I mean, it's obviously you've got to have a death certificate, because otherwise Mark could be saying, I want to know all the secrets of N Power and Southern Water. I need to know them.
Yeah. Well, that's where, so in terms of when you're setting up your account and you add your nominees, they would then get an email to say that they're verified, they've been given that permission, which you can add, amend, change as your life changes, which is great. Then let's say upon someone passing away, if you've already got access to that vault, great. If not, then like you say, just production of the death certificate through the the sort of set email processes that you go through just to pass that data on, and it gets released to you. But like you say, the key is letting people know I've got a sunset plan, and I think that's why we sort of when we're coming up with the name, it's it's kind of a bit more cheery, so it gets people to think about it a bit in a bit more of a cheerier light
term.
or, kind of if that became a bit of a used term of it's okay, I've got a sunset plan. And then people, oh, right, okay, I've got a sunset plan, right, that's great, we know where to look, it's there. So I think hopefully, as it sort of takes off and sort of word spreads, that'll be quite a nicer approach to sort of end of life planning. And then once people know that you've got one, great, they're organised. But I do think in terms of a lot of the issues we've discussed today, it's such a good solution to so many issues. Yeah,
definitely. And like my daughter's just joined in, and like she's 23, yeah, and she says, what a fab idea, what is a difficult time to have a plan in action. So that's her saying, Mum, sort yourself out. She's and I'm nearly 50, so hopefully it's not going to be for a while yet, but you don't know what's around the corner, do you? So and
well, if you look to the future as well, so for example your daughter's age, when by the time they get to sort of 50, 60 plus, they wouldn't be thinking, well, we'll go around the house and look for the paperwork. There will be no paperwork in the house.
There will be no paperwork. It's very little paperwork here, because a lot of it's digital, and getting into someone's email account, I mean, like my son, who's our IT department, isn't he, Sophie? He knows everybody's passwords anyway, because if you've got a problem, he's got remote access and things like that, but the computer's got to be up and running, but he would know because he's set them up and he knows. I mean, but not everybody has got a Daniel, and they might have a Daniel that's a sneaky little so-and-so and was trying to see. I mean, good luck looking in my bank account, because there's not a lot in there. He's our IT whiz, isn't he, Sophie? Definitely is.
Oh. But I think that's the way things are going. Our lives are so online now, and I think this is just an extension of that, really, and just capturing it all nice and securely online is just there. So I think, like I say, future generations, again, by the time I suppose they get to 50, 60, 70, the way we process death will be completely different all over again. So it's kind of
there'll be a hologram you saying reading your own will, and like it's like you say, it's so much changed from, I mean, computers when I was at school, it was very basic word processing, and of course I remember the tennis things where they were like beep beep beep, But, you know, that was a computer when I was a kid, and you think, you know, it's never going to catch on. Oh, oh, did it?
But again, end of life stuff is one of those industries that is very static, hasn't changed for such a long time. And I think, you know, going back to when I first started out, you know, sort of deciding to do something about my idea that had sort of gone on for a few months. When I started to do it, it was sort of last January, February, and then the blog went live in the March, just about a week before COVID. Sort of went from being oh, there's something going on in another country, to, oh, hang on, it's getting a bit close, to being a bit consumed. And there was that thought of, is this really a poor timing? Is this going to be perceived? Because traditionally,
No.
there's not a lot of information out there. Hence, I had the idea because I'd struggled, you know, 18 months, 12 months before, to actually find what I needed. And I thought, oh God, is this really bad timing? Is this in bad taste? Actually, the world sort of changed overnight, thinking, wow, we haven't really planned what if, and actually it's nearer knocking on our door than it ever has been. For people that aren't necessarily unwell or a particular age, this could happen to me. This is happening to people that I've, you know, and I think that kind of sparks a lot of interest. And it's really, really strange, because when I first set up the blog and the social media linked accounts, I'm always surprised at where I get people contacting me from, and they're all over the world. And some day, the other day, someone got in contact from the Bahamas, India, Poland, Finland, lots of Australia and New Zealand, South Africa, Canada, so much around the world contacting you, thinking, wow, there's a proper movement now for people to be more death positive. And so, crikey, that's a bit strange. But actually, it's people saying it is a part of life. We need to accept it. We need to embrace it, plan for it, and then park it. You know, you can kind of have that peace of mind that it's done, it's dealt with, and it's there for when those, you know, your loved ones need it. It will all be organised, and it's just there for them. So I think actually, what was a bit of a, oh crikey, this is a bit of a gamble in terms of timing. How will this be? Oh, she's a bit miserable, isn't she? She's a bit cheeky when people are losing loved ones.
No,
You know,
but it's a fact of life. And actually, I think COVID, you know, it was such a shock. I mean, people did perhaps see it coming. They did see a little bit, you know, but I mean, I remember saying, oh, it's just a cold. It's just a really bad flu. You know, it's in China. It's in Spain. It's over here. It's not a cold, you know, and this realization dawns, and mortality dawns. And it's, you know, we're effectively in a 21st century plague.
Yeah.
You know, so, and we all know about the Black Plague, or the Black Death and the plague of, you know, the 14th century and the 17th century. So, you know, to actually be living through it, like there was a meme going around, it's like the living through the plague but with Wi-Fi, and it's true. I mean, you know, but at least we know what's going on in the, you know, in, like you say, in Australia, in the Bahamas. I mean, I was chatting to a friend in New Zealand at the weekend on WhatsApp, a friend in America on WhatsApp, a friend in Sweden on Messenger, and we've got all these things, so we might as well use them, mightn't we? You know, because it's, you know, it is a very different thing. So if, oh, I'm glad that talking about death and planning for it isn't taboo now. It's the most natural cycle of life. That's very profound for my baby.
Oh, wonderful.
And she's got a funeral celebrant, slightly morbid, obsessed mother, can't you?
Don't think she has a lot of choice, really.
But if she's 23 and she's like, okay, I do need to think about this, because people do die. And I think, like we said, COVID's brought it to the fore that COVID isn't fair. It doesn't matter who you are. It's another thing that just takes people for no apparent reason. So so how can people get hold of you? If you could put some links up in the comments when this is done. So, but it's, so if you can just, how people can get hold of you, because I'm sure there's some interested parties out there today.
Yeah, lovely. So thesunsetplan.com, and that will take you to our website. In terms of the digital vault, there's a page that's a coming soon holding page that will be going live on the 23rd of March. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Pinterest, LinkedIn. Just search for the Sunset Plan. Get involved, share. Again, if you know someone that's been recently bereaved and, you know, think they could do with some more of the practical how-tos, blogs and guides are on the website. For, in terms of if someone's looking for structure, but they don't want to go down the digital vault route just yet, because I do appreciate that that's a big trust of people thinking, but still want to look at some resources. Again, really affordable resources that we have to sell, that quick download links online, all that just at sunsetplan.com. But again, it's quite nice because I get to work with lovely people like Claire and share resources. And I think that's what it's about, you
I
know,
think
sort of, as
so.
your daughter was saying, is making that conversation, breaking it down so it's not so taboo, and making it more of a mainstream conversation. So I do a lot of sharing, a lot of engagement on social media, especially when I can see other services that are coming up to plug some of these gaps.
Yeah.
It's really nice. There's a lovely little growing community out there now, where people are getting sort of, you know, that's a bit of a problem, right? How can we resolve that? You know, and lots of stuff out there. So social media is a great way to get in touch. But like I say, just keep an eye on our website, and if you want any more information, just get in touch.
Yeah, brilliant. And I have to say, it's a fantastic website. I didn't stalk you, Kerry, but though
Oh,
I have to
that's a
say,
shame.
I did stalk Kerry in the first place, because I actually, talking about social media, I don't know if you followed me or I followed you first on Instagram, and I liked your posts and you liked mine, and you just get, and like Jean, who was on last week, the soul midwife. I've never met Jean, only on the phone and then via Zoom, and she's sort of Midlandsy way, and I just, you like what people are posting, and you think that person is coming from a similar kind of wavelength from me, and you know, they're coming at it with a similar attitude, and they've got something I don't know, and we can share that. So Carmel's saying, I'm so glad too, and I'm not so crazy talking about it when teaching how to save. Carmel's a first aid teacher.
Okay.
She's a first aid trainer, and she was very, I know she's very interested in the soul midwife talk last week, and she's bought a stack of books to go and read. So, and yeah, she says, thank you, Kerry, it's brilliant information.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you for joining. It's been so great.
Well, thank you for joining me, Kerry. I really enjoyed chatting to you today. So I think we'll leave that there, and if you can put those comments in the link, put your links, sorry, in the comments of the video. And yeah, thanks very much, Kerry. So thanks for joining us, everyone. Take care.
Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.